thank you, everybody, for attending. It's amazing how fall is just coming in like it's a rocket. How fast the leaves and so forth are changing. It's really amazing. So I couldn't help but on number 2 with respect to the smoke that's in your eyes. I wasn't around, of course, when that song was first written. That predated me a few decades, that's for sure. But smoke is not exactly something, I guess, that we should laugh about anymore if we see what's going on the West Coast. I do recall as a child living here in Kinderhook, at some point we were notified that smoke was coming down from the northeast, and that smoke was coming from Maine. And there was evidently a forest fire in Maine. And I think we shouldn't take it for granted. We're currently in a drought, aren't we? Most of us that have been outside. So to think that we can never have a drought to the point where we have fires, unwanted fires, forest fires, I don't think it's out of the question. I believe everybody should have gotten their meeting minutes. Do we have any suggested changes? It's very copious, a lot of information here. Maureen, once again, does an outstanding job.
Well, thank you. I put in a revision for Tara, the health department.
Yeah, but I think you had 2 pages of Sarah's report. No?
Yeah, they were very good notes.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Good. Not exactly uplifting, Tara, but accurate.
So I had one question or issue with the motion, but my computer was hacked and wiped dry, blank, and I wasn't able to follow up on it, and I don't want to stop the process. So I'll just mention that.
I'm sorry.
Did you check the motion for the July minutes, Christian?
I believe so. Anyway, I don't want to stop the process.
Well, I thought we were just briefly reviewing it before we entertained a motion to approve it.
I don't think we'll be able to approve it tonight because we don't have a quorum.
That's true. That's a moot question.
Somebody, can I ask a quick question? It's a technical question. There seems to be an echo and a lot of feedback. Am I the only one hearing that? Or is...
I'm having a problem too. I think
so everybody will be connected with their phone and their computer, and that's when this.
I'm getting a lot of that. I think I'm the main source. I've got the microphone turned off, but this setup doesn't seem to handle telephone very well. So I'm going to try to minimize.
You can turn off your phone and just use the computer. No?
You talking about the echo?
Or if you had a pair of headsets, then that would.
I don't.
Okay.
But I'll try something.
All right. Since we can't entertain a motion to adopt the minutes, that's kind of waste of time to go over them, I guess, unless somebody has some issues with some of them that they'd like to discuss. If those may come up in the agenda. I have a few issues with some of them. But, all right. So we're going to have to move on. Climate Smart County group, you busy beavers, you had a meeting, right? And I assume, I don't know if you want to say anything orally with respect to that meeting, but I guess you've already figured out what's the next step is. You may want to share it with everybody else, though.
Sure. Thanks, Ed. Hi, everyone. So on the 17th, we presented to the government committee the concept and what we're proposing, and we got a good reception. We got some questions from Ron Knott in particular, really talking about it was more of a statement, really talking about all the work that he and others have done already on energy efficiency in various towns and throughout the county. So we talked about how we would want to leverage all that progress and try to get credit for it as part of this initiative. And he has a series of questions really around how to operationalize it. But he said at the beginning of the meeting, this isn't a debate about climate change. It's just a question about what we need to do. I thought that was a good statement, and it seemed like early they were supportive of the initiative. The questions really revolve around what role the EMC plays versus the task force. This is the Climate Smart Task Force.
Yeah.
Also, to what degree can the EMC, or is the EMC or any EMC authorized to solicit and raise funds? And questions around hiring a coordinator. So we had a follow-up conversation, Ron and I, soon thereafter, last week. And it was very productive. We talked about the types of projects we could work on. His other concern is, you say it's not an unfunded mandate. You say that once you sign on to this program, there's nothing that forces the county to take action and spend resources that it doesn't want to spend. But we have to be careful about that. So there's that concern that that are we really aware of how this will play out over the long run? And of course, it's a very benign program, and we have a 5-6 year history of it being implemented in various counties and towns throughout the state. And there's really no reason for a concern like that. So we just have to get people comfortable with this concept and with the idea. So we had a follow-up conversation to talk through some of these issues, and we agreed that we should convene a kind of a joint working group to plan this out. Some of the supervisors, a group of supervisors, and a group of us, of EMC members. And so he's talking about including Kippy Weigelt, Donald Collins, Tistria Hutling, and himself from the Board of Supervisors. So he's reached out to them to participate in this kind of discussion group to kind of figure out how to bring a plan back to the Board of Supervisors that can be adopted. And I would propose that the folks that have been most active among the EMC, our colleagues, would participate. And I can give a list. I would imagine Kara and Bruce, of course, Michael, and Christian, and John. Although he's not on the EMC, he's been quite active. He could join us. So I don't want to have too many people. I don't think that's productive. And we're not making any final decisions. This is discussion to try to move the ball forward, alleviate kind of concerns. So Patrice is going to set up a meeting. I'd like to hear feedback on this as a next step. If anyone has any concerns, we should talk it through right now. And the idea is to figure out, how do we go from a resolution that the county would pass to adopt this program? How do we then stand up a task force? And how do we then organize ourselves with a coordinator? And I believe that this group can come up with a list of people, which may include some of the people in the group and maybe not, may include EMC members, maybe not, but a diverse, dedicated group of people that want to serve at the county level on a task force. First and foremost, to document all the progress that's been made, to organize ourselves, to then look at the action items that would make the most sense for the county to pursue in the next year or two, and then start moving forward, like has been done in all the towns. And I think we can also start with a volunteer group and a volunteer coordinator. I've offered to serve as that volunteer coordinator until we have the resources to hire someone. Someone else could do that. And I think we can make a lot of progress this way. So So that's kind of where we're at, but I'd like to hear any feedback, any comments, concerns about where this is going, and any kind of suggestions that might improve the process.
Sounds like a reasonable approach. Thank you for pushing on that.
Absolutely. You folks have been very successful, and very frankly, I'm envious. Okay, but that's great. I think you're doing a great job, and the more of others, meaning those other than us, that one can involve in that group, I think is a great strategy. So I think you're going to be very successful too. I really do. There's going to be some times when I think we're going to kind of hit a wall, but maybe you can work around that wall, whatever it is.
I agree with you, Ed. I think that we are likely to come up with some kind of impediment along the way, which may not seem from our perspective or some of our perspectives to be significant, but may block our path for a while. And we'll have to just figure out how to accommodate those concerns. I think it's really about, this is an exercise in civil discourse at a time when we don't have that really more broadly. And I think there's a lot to agree on here, and there's no reason for us to stumble over disagreement. We can work through them. That's how Ron and I have been talking about it, and I do think that we'll find a path forward, which makes sense. And we just need to get to the point where we can really start initiating real action and engaging people in the community beyond the resolution, beyond the talk and the framing of the issue. We really need to have some early wins where we can start rallying people and bring people together who maybe ordinarily wouldn't be working together.
Two of the issues, Dave, that and maybe you've already conquered those. At least for a while, it appeared like the carriers, those that took our solid waste from us, kind of ran the show. All right. And they decided whether or not and what we could recycle, et cetera. And that seemed to be a very powerful group. Maybe my observation is off, but I don't think so. So it sounds like you're going around it, and that's great.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think when you have a generally libertarian small government mindset, which has been the history in our county for the most part, it's not hard to, it's logical in that from that perspective to defer to a private partner and say, okay, you're going to do all this, and we're not going to, we're going to see what, and you're not proactively dictating the solid waste policy. You're reacting and just finding a solution that will get us there from today to tomorrow. So obviously, we're coming at this with a different mindset, and we'll have to figure out how we can have a meeting of the minds that allows us to move forward. There's a lot of projects that Ron's been involved in and others that just make perfect sense regardless of climate change in the environment. And that's what we have to focus on.
Did you happen to check the list from the Hudson River Valley Greenway of the many grants that are available?
I haven't looked into that yet. And I think one of the big questions that will continue to be at the front of mind is, okay, at this very insecure time with budgets being cut, are we really, is there really an opportunity for a grant? And I've heard that the Clean Energy Communities program, which is not tied to the budget, which is based on fees from the utilities and also the climate, RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. So it's separately funded. I've heard that there's an opportunity for that funding may be announced, a request for proposals sometime soon. Mm-hmm. So there'll be certain things, even in government programs, that I think will still move forward, but we'll have challenges. So we'll have to look at the private foundations and nonprofits as well to look for funding. But right now, a lot of what we can do and what we need to do to really get this going is kind of internal housekeeping. So I feel like we need to figure out and document all of appropriately through this program and upload the information, all of the progress that's been made in the county so far, and begin getting acknowledged for that as we work on other more exciting initiatives or more far-reaching initiatives.
Yep. Sounds good. Anybody else? No. Well, thank you, Dave, and thank all of those that are part of your group and working on this project. That's tremendous.
One last thing, Ed. Patrice, I think, is going to reach out to the group I mentioned to try to set something up, hopefully next week, an initial call with the supervisors.
Okay. All right. Yeah, there was a exchange, I think, between her and Wait, whatever, with respect to that. I thought I saw. Anyway, good. That's good.
I have a question, if I may. David, do you want us to should we be doing any follow-up with our local supervisors, checking in with them at this point? I would like to maybe pursue that a little bit and see where we're at, because I watched your presentation on YouTube, but there wasn't a lot of time at the end for everybody to weigh in, and I wonder if we should be kind of continuing to keep that conversation going, and if I'm authorized to do that.
Well, you're authorized to do anything you want. And that would be a great thing to do, regardless of whether you're authorized. But I think that's a great idea, Barbara. I think we should, and thanks for reminding us all that we need to continue to build support for this. It's not a done deal, and I don't know how these discussions are going to go. And I think these supervisors will be ultimately influenced by each other. And so if we can continue to build support in the towns, continue to get letters in, continue to update our town boards on this project so that it's something that people are aware of and talking about and hopefully getting excited about. It's going to be much harder for the naysayer to try to stop it or slow it down. So I think that's really important, Barbara, and I hope we can all continue to update our respective boards and climate smart committees in our towns about this initiative and hopefully get people excited to get more involved. Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Excuse me, Ed, we do have a quorum now.
We do. Oh boy.
Rick joined us.
Okay. All right.
We could go ahead with the minutes if you.
You want to go back and do that? Sure, we can do that. Okay, these are the minutes for our August 24th meeting.
Correct.
24th, 2020. So, does anybody have any comments? Some of these things I'm going to address later, but there's a significant amount here on solar panels. I just like to make a comment with respect to solar panels, which has to do with all planning, right? Very frequently, communities go ahead and plan something, and they don't think ahead to what may occur if that project dies. Who cleans it up? All right. The person that should clean it up is the one that proposed it and it died. My point is, I think sometimes when we write regulation, you have to very carefully put language in there requiring the property owner to clean up if indeed the project fails. A lot of communities don't have it, and that's a big mistake. So I know we ran across that in the Kinderhook for sure. I'll talk more about the neighbor notification law later. Anyway, anybody have anything else with respect to the minutes? I know I keep talking about it, I apologize. I'm sorry. I cannot understand how DEC could be so close to Norlight and not know that they were trying to burn PFOAs. I can't understand it. Just can't understand. And thanks to the people that live there. They did something. Anyway, I don't have anything. Nobody else? Then entertain a motion to approve the minutes
Moved.
for the August 24th, 2020 meeting.
I'll second that.
Who made the
I
first?
have Rick made a motion to approve and Michael seconded it.
Okay. Yeah, very good. All right.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? I don't know what all that is.
It was Maureen's name.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Choke that doggone chicken, kill it. Okay. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Pass. Next.
Ed and Maureen, I think we got
Was
this
it-
background noise when Teresa
What
Mayhew
is
joined.
that noise?
I believe it is in the background for Teresa Mayhew. Can somebody reach out to her and find out?
There we go.
Good. Thank you.
Whew-wee, what a difference. Okay.
So it was approved. I'm sorry.
Yes, unanimously.
Thank you.
Let's see, do we have any more information on Zero Waste Columbia? Some of you have been working on that project. Is there anything new?
The update we have, Ed, is that on October 17th, through the Claverick Library, we're hosting a Zero Waste Columbia meeting for an hour and a half starting at 4:00. I'll make sure everybody gets the information. You have to register by emailing us at the email address in the flyer. So I'll make sure everybody gets the flyer, and you have to register to get the Zoom login. And it's Saturday the 17th from 4 until 5:30 in the afternoon.
Good, very good. That's a great effort. Good for you, Colleen. Anything else on that subject? Solar panel, local installations. Are we or anyone keeping a list or a tally of the square foot or the area of solar panels that are being constructed in the county? I think it'd be an interesting thing.
It's public information through NYSERDA, no doubt. And on your point earlier, NYSERDA, it has a wealth of information for municipalities to guide them. Whether they'll use it remains to be seen, but to guide them in negotiating with developers, particularly the more modest sized projects like the one in Kinderhook, et cetera, that are 10 to 30 acres or so on. NYSERDA has quite a bit of information that guides municipalities in negotiating exit plans for projects. And, it becomes more concerning when there's big money and big projects like over 100 acres that with the home rule, I don't know, as legislation that went through recently that eliminates home rule. So that's where I think a lot of focus should be on these big, much larger projects that cover vast areas of land. But they should all. I mean, we want to protect our land. So.
Yeah, and also taxing is an issue. I don't know. I think you mentioned that. Do they get taxed?
There's a pilot program that NYSERDA has put forth for municipalities to negotiate taxes in lieu of, revenue in lieu of property taxes paid to the town through the developer, by the developer.
Yeah, pilots.
Based on the size of the project. Right.
Yeah, very good. Okay, thank you. We're down to D, neighbor notification law regarding pesticide applications, et cetera. we were to look at that and think about that. I just, I'm sorry, I have to tell you, like it is for me, where I'm sitting right now is probably about 150 feet from our nearest neighbor's property, no matter where his home is. So here a couple of weeks ago, I sprayed Roundup on our front walk that was absolutely covered with weeds. My wife and I, we just don't have the energy at the time anymore to take care of that. And would we have to alert our neighbor to that? I would hope not. I would hope not. And whoever creates this legislation, you have to be specific. I've written or tried to enforce local laws, and if they're vague, forget it. You got to have, when you're talking about distance, you got to have numbers. You can't say short or long, whatever. Got to be very specific. So I would hope that that would be the case. And of course, this is kind of outside our hands anyway. This is DEC's effort. So anyway, I guess I had my piece on that. Anybody else?
Ed, if I could weigh in a little bit, it's Rick.
Yeah.
I shared with the committee, I'm pretty sure it went around to everybody, the Ulster County example. And if you look through that example, you'll see that it addresses a lot of what you are asking about. Okay. I'll have to reread it myself with your direct questions in mind, but yeah, that's my memory of it.
Okay, good. Yeah, that'd be good, particularly if it wasn't in the original legislation. So thank you, Rick. Are we going to get back to expanded polystyrene regulations or not? Okay. Michael and I kind of took this on. Well, it'd be nice if maybe somebody else would like to join in that effort. Or very frankly, our pro-environment folks, there's a lot of fronts to fight on, a lot of fronts, and to try to regulate or eliminate the presence of plastics that plague us for the rest of eternity would be, I think, a good idea. And expanded polystyrenes is one of those that should go. So, and I think we all agree with that. So anyway, so anybody wants to help create some questionnaire questions, speak up. Let's see. Citizens Climate Lobby. I don't think we have anybody here that can speak to that. Do we? I don't think so.
Well, certainly I can, but nothing I think that would concern the EMC right now. I mean, we're dealing with of course, the upcoming elections and gaming out strategies for how to respond to any of three different possibilities of a combination of House and Senate and president's seat, and adapting to whichever one becomes reality, because we're nonpartisan. But we just need to think about how we assemble the critical majorities at the national level to refocus the country on dealing with the challenge of climate change in an urgent and practical way. So there's nuances about what scenario succeeds and how we deal with it, but the point for all of them is that this is something that's going to persist for many years after we get the COVID problem wrapped up. That has a horizon. We can look out and see that we're going to take control of the health issues, but we're nowhere near taking control of and making the world a safer place in the light of climate change. So that's a longer term project that has an immediate urgency about it.
Okay. I assume some of the long-term goals are to put a price on carbon. I assume
Oh,
that.
that's our thing.
Yeah.
I'm involved in a kind of a panel discussion tomorrow afternoon with a group in Albany, in which we have 6 of us representing all of the major proposals that are now being discussed. The Biden campaign's proposal, the House Democrats' proposal, the Green New Deal, and so forth. And I'm on there talking about pricing carbon, which some of the other proposals don't take. And so it'll be a discussion of all of these different aspects. And I think for anybody who's interested, it will be recorded, and I'll share the link with you afterwards. But I think it should be a very useful discussion.
Good. Let's see what one of the issues, and I'm sure you'll be going after this. That is, I know here in the town of Kinderhook, we have some folks that own some very large parcels, and I'm not talking about myself, that have large woodlands. I mean, large woodlands, large open fields, with primarily grass, all of which sequester carbon. And if indeed we can get monies for the sale of carbon, perhaps a good place for those monies to go is to those people that pay the enormous real estate taxes for this property. It benefits everybody.
Yep.
Benefits us all.
Right. And some of the legislation that I skimmed over just now does specifically talk about encouragement to farmers and other landowners to utilize what would be more productive in a carbon point of view. Various farming techniques that many farmers are familiar with, but perhaps they need some encouragement to make the jump from one form of farming to another, or perhaps change of crops, different method of plowing, things like that. If you give them some incentive to do it, then we can move quite a bit of carbon into the ground where it belongs.
Right.
Yeah, just one quick comment on that. I think that it's a very exciting area of innovation and progress that we can push for in our community here. I think we can, be a leader in that. We have enough active farms and farmlands. We have the forest corridor that cuts through the county, important resources there. But like Michael said, it's going to be a combination of models where farmers can see other farmers doing things, not just hear about it from people that are telling them that's the right thing to do, and then financial incentives to help offset additional costs. So, things that are simple like cover cropping is one minor thing, but that's something that we can make progress on in the short term. The idea of planting trees and hedgerows is something that can really help with fields resist dry conditions and help keep moisture on the fields. So there are benefits to the farmer. And then one thing that I'm very passionate about right now is biochar. And I think there's a great opportunity for us to be actively sequestering carbon in the soil and helping to restore soil biology and life to increase fertility while we're also sequestering carbon. And that's an area that I think we're going to find in the coming years gets a lot of attention, especially from the carbon markets, because it's
I like that.
So I mean, these are the kinds of projects that we can disseminate information on. We can identify partnering farmers to model. We can identify people that are already doing these things as part of the Climate Smart initiative in the county to bring other farmers to the table, figure out what financing is available, that type of thing. It's once we get some momentum in these areas, I think we'll see that there's great great opportunity.
Help me. Are there references and so forth where I could study whatever and find how you could actually calculate the amount of carbon sequestered by, I don't know, 5 or 10 acres of X, Y, or Z, or standing timber, et cetera, such that you can, by looking at that, you could actually reduce it to dollars and cents, you know? I don't know. I don't know.
Ed, I think that work is in the process of being refined. Here in Columbia County, we have one of the best research centers in the country that's doing work to derive just that information of what actions yield what sort of result in the carbon capture. And you know, but it's not to the point where you could just say, oh, 10 acres of alfalfa farmed in this way equals a certain amount of carbon capture, which would then give you the basis on which to reward the farmer's actions with some incentives. So we're still a little ways from that. We know in general that certain changes in agricultural practices do yield generally positive reactions, but we're still a little bit away from saying it'll yield exactly this much.
Okay.
And there's a lot of literature which will provide a range of figures for different landscapes, different forests. I mean, I've heard numbers like 50 pounds of carbon per tree in a mature forest, but it's going to vary. It's going to vary in where in the world you are, what type of trees, the species, right?
Yeah.
So we need to, you know, and I'm certainly not an expert on this, but there's a lot out there in the literature. You can get a sense of what that number looks like. But like Michael said, dialing it down to something that's verifiable at the local level is the key. And I think that's what's already happening in some of these voluntary carbon markets.
Yeah, very good.
If I could just ask you, I apologize if I missed this when we were starting on this topic, but Dee Dee Barrett had been working on legislation, and my impression from her probably a year ago or more was that there were already some farms that were doing pilot work on that. Michael, is that what you were referring to, or were you thinking of?
Yes. No, that's she's quite aware of the same farms that I'm familiar with. Mud Creek Farm down in Livingston is the premier example of that. So yes, Dee Dee's legislation was specifically based on examples like that.
Yeah, I haven't talked to her in probably a year or so about it, and I was wondering if we knew where that was, if Mud Creek is working with her. I want to say that there was a couple farms over in either Greene County or southwestern Albany County that were taking part in the project, but I haven't followed up with her recently on that. So Ed, that's, you know, when you're asking, can you find references? That's, you know, that work is happening, and it was happening as I knew it. It was happening already a year ago or more. But what's come of that, I don't know.
Well, the legislation as she proposed it did not get approved. What was actually finally approved was a grant program for funding some pilot projects, which was as far as she could push it at that moment, and that was must be 4 years ago at that point when she first came up with the idea. So, you know, the science has come along since then. So perhaps next state legislature session will be the time to bring it up again. Very
good. Good. Good discussion. Good questions, folks. Thank you very much. Terry, maybe you're aware, anything new with natural resource inventory updates or applications? Hearing none. Media reports. New York's climate, I'm sure you're all aware of the countdown clock that I assume is down in Times Square. or in that area and so forth. And I get reminded maybe of one of the problems of growing older, running out of time, because I'm not the only one that's run out of time. We're all running out of time, right? And Greta Thunberg, she had it right, man and woman. Our homes are on fire, and I thought that was a good analogy. And I think as much as we do, and I think we have to continue to do it, I think we have to look for even more to do. So maybe we need more folks, but I'm sure some of you are pretty tapped out with respect to time as it is, and I recognize that time is also finite, Anyway, just some thoughts on that. What is the new county local health reports? Tara?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so the COVID cases are, we're holding our own. As of today, we have 1 new case, and 9 active. The number of residents that have passed away in the county still stands at 37. That was from early June, so luckily there haven't been any more people that have passed. We're still continuing to hold the COVID testing clinics. They're doing a walk-up clinic tomorrow at the John L. Edwards School again in the morning. And that's the last one that they have scheduled, but they're going to continue them. They're just trying to find a way forward as the weather starts getting colder, and, trying to figure out how to do this semi-indoors if possible. They also started doing flu clinics because they're concerned with, a possible second wave of this, is that if people are having flu symptoms, they might be very similar to COVID symptoms, and that could exacerbate the COVID issue. So, the state wanted to make sure we were still going to continue to hold flu vaccination clinics, which we did our first one the other day out at the Rojan Library, our first ever drive-through vaccination clinic where people stayed in their vehicles, and it worked very well. I was there. I was the gatekeeper of the cars going to each lane where the nurses were giving out the shots, and so it worked very well, and that's generally the model that they're going to use when, I won't say if, but when a approved COVID vaccine comes out. They'll be doing these as a drive-through, mass vaccination. So there is a flu clinic schedule on our website. The next one is going to be this Wednesday at the Chatham Fairgrounds from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. And right now you have to go on our website and pre-register. They started out at doing 100 people because they weren't sure how the clinic was going to go. But now they're increasing that number because we realized the other day we could have vaccinated probably 25 more people per half hour. So they're going to continue. There's going to be one coming up Saturday, October 3rd at the college from 9 to 12. And that's in conjunction with what normally is the Golden Gathering, which I guess they're still going to be doing that this year. It's just going to be virtually or in the parking area or outside or something like that. So that's the update on the viruses and the seasonal flu. The day after we had our meeting last time, after I had said there was no movement on the PFAS and 1,4-dioxane MCLs, I got an email the very next morning that said, okay, here it's coming out. It's going to be published in the state register, so it is now law. Those MCLs went into effect August 26th, 2020. So a public water system that serves 10,000 people or more are going to have to monitor for PFOA, PFOS, and 1,4-dioxane within 60 days of the 26th of August, which would bring us to October 25th. We don't have any water supplies that large in the county. Our largest water supply would be City of Hudson. So those supplies are within 90 days or by November 25th. And then all the smaller supplies, 3,300 people or less, will have to start monitoring by February 25th. And that should be 2021. I think they have the date wrong on that, but so we're going to begin notifying water supplies of this change. A lot of the larger water supplies have already preemptively done the sampling. When things started to come out about Hoosick Falls in the news, they just wanted to be proactive and make sure they didn't have a problem. So there's been no problems identified in our county yet, fortunately. So maybe some of the smaller systems, but it's just going to be a matter of, we'll wait and see when it comes back. So that's that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I had to update. No, nothing I can think of. There's a couple more rabies clinics coming up. One in October. I think that was in the last minutes, but let's see. That was, October 7th, Clovertown Park in Mellonville from 4 to 6 is another rabies clinic. And then one up in Kinderhook, which I believe they're trying to move that location because the town supervisor didn't really want to have that one indoors. So they're looking for going to the park possibly, but I'm not sure. But that's not till November 7th. So that's all I had for this time.
Tara, one of the concerns I always had when I sat on the planning board was that we had some water systems that fell rather well below those that are required to test. And that always bothered the heck out of me. The other part of it is they take their own samples.
Yep.
That one really gets me.
Yeah.
Okay?
The state health department, they give us a certain number of, places that we can pick to do the larger samples at. We usually pick some mobile home parks that, some of those samples they have to take get pretty pricey. So they usually give us a few we can take, ourselves to do the surveillance. So we continuously rotate who's getting those larger samples. It's usually lead and copper and the volatile organics but so I'm wondering if this will be added to that, that maybe we can target some that we think might be a problem and take them ourselves. The other thing I forgot to mention was the Bender St. Peter water laboratory is closing as of the end of the month, and that's the lab we use for all of our water sampling, and a large majority of all the water systems in the county go through Bender St. Peter lab. So that's a huge surprise, but I guess the hospital, having lost money through this whole pandemic with the elective surgeries not happening, and they're trying to cut back their expenses, and so they're closing Bender lab, so everyone's going to need to scramble to try to find labs to pick up the slack. So
see, and I don't mean to hold this all up, but I'm going to say a few other words. I guess when the town of Kinderhook was considering creating a park, all right, on State Farm Road, they had samples of soil were taken, and lo and behold, the element they found that was kind of off the scale was cadmium.
ooh.
Yeah, I know, cadmium. So it's still to this day, and I don't think anyone else has an idea of how cadmium could wind up there. But here again, why do we find lithium in places? They're harvesting lithium for the lithium batteries, right?
Ed, it's Rick. Sorry if I jump in here, but two of the things that you really should test any ducks that you shoot in the Hudson Valley are for cadmium and selenium. So somehow, some way, that's getting into the vegetation that the dabblers are eating. So, duck hunters need to be aware of what they're bringing home.
That's interesting. Thanks, Rick. Okay. Anybody have any comments? Anything they'd like to share? I'm not going to let that go by. Here over the last few years, between my activities, caused me to wind up in the emergency room at Columbia Memorial Hospital, and the problems we have as we grow older. I must tell you, I am always impressed, absolutely impressed from top to bottom. They are so wonderful, so wonderful. Here, day before yesterday, I had an enhanced CAT scan. Well, something happened and it went wrong, and I thought I was going to die. The pain was so absolutely severe. I rose right up out of the chair and out of the machine. So guess what they did? They tried it again, and they had the same result. So I talked to one of the nurses there, went back today. The nurse was there. She said she'd been thinking about it all weekend. They redid the test, and there was no problem. Everything was fine. So, and they care. They sincerely care, and I'm very grateful for that. Which I think we all should be. Anyway, that's all I got. Anybody? Anything else? Anyway, it's good to see you.
Actually, I'm so sorry. I was late. I'm really apologize to everyone. I just lost track of the days. But I did just want to flag that the New York State Climate Action Council has started, they started meeting in March, but they've really started picking things up. The advisory councils are meeting, and there is going to be quite a bit of public engagement coming up. So keep an eye on that, because it's an opportunity for us all to comment and participate in that process.
Okay, good.
In developing the scoping plan.
Very good. Anybody, anything else? Shucks, it's going to be a month rather, before we see one another again. I don't know. See if we can do something about that. Okay, everybody. Thank you, everybody. You know, you're such wonderful people. So take care, everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, Ed. Be well, everyone.
Yep.
Good
Take
night.
care. Bye-bye.